Hi, I am Seth DePasquale. Thank you so much for the intro. I'm going to be talking today about improving quality through training and how we can go about that and how exactly maybe we'll benefit from doing a little bit better with our training. Here's my statement of disclosure. I own and operate Lyceum LLC and are an accredited provider of continuing pharmacy education. I have no other conflicts to disclose other than that. Here are the learning objectives for both pharmacists and technicians. First, for pharmacists, discuss the importance of creating a quality-centered culture. Describe how technology can be leveraged to make training more engaging and easier to track. Discuss the importance of standardization and a quality culture in training programs. Discuss the limitations of current forms of training and education for pharmacy operators. And then for technicians, list the top 3 qualities of a culture of quality. Discuss the 4 barriers to a successful quality program. And list the 5 quality attributes GMP focuses on. So this entire presentation has really come out of a survey that I found with ASQ and Forbes that they put together. And it talks all about creating a culture of quality. And what are the top qualities? It starts out with, what are the top qualities of a culture of quality? And these are the top 3 that they listed. So vision, having a clear vision that's clearly stated of what your quality is supposed to look like. Having values that are also clearly stated. And then leadership, to have full buy-in from the leadership, but not just from the leadership at the top, the leadership, the middle managers, and everyone needs to basically buy in. But leadership is a real priority for buy-in to this quality culture for it to all work. So how do we go about creating a culture of quality? Well, these are the top 3 things for that. 1, to know your customer. So know who your customer is, know what their needs are, know what your goals are, and know how to measure your goals. So I'm going to talk a lot about metrics in this presentation and utilizing metrics as a feedback mechanism for showing how your culture of quality is going, or how your quality in general is going. It's done by Forbes and ASQ, like I said, and it's surveying the executives and quality managers of various organizations, top level organizations, larger organizations with a good culture of quality. So know your customer. Your customer may not always be who you think it is. Your customer could be somebody within the organization. It could be the end patient or end user of the product, but that's not always the case. So knowing your customer, who they are, and what they expect from us is really important, and goes along with knowing your goals as well. Some of the barriers to successful quality-focused programs: a lack of standardization. So standardization across the board. If you don't have all the operators or everyone in the organization doing the same thing, you're going to have a breakdown in quality. Lack of technology to ensure quality. So an example of that might be barcoding things to make them easy to verify that you're using the correct thing at the correct time. A lack of specialized training, which I'm going to hit on quite a bit here. Specialized training for your individual operators, and having good training for that. And then again, the use of technology for metrics. So using technology to measure aspects of your quality programs, and again, using that as a feedback mechanism for showing your quality is actually working. So GMP, already out of the box, focuses quality on these 5 things: identity, having the right drug, the right strength or the right dose. Quality meaning sterility, free of microorganisms, especially if we're talking about sterile products. Potency and purity, and then safety. Safety meaning not having any kind of uh, uh, any putrid things within our compounds. We don't want anything in them, and having safety mechanisms around to catch when we have an issue with our compounds. So let's focus in just a little bit on potency and purity here for 1 second. There was a pharmacy that has been in the news in the last year or so for what they do is they get in end products like tablets and capsules and that kind of stuff, like any other pharmacy. But they test for impurities and the potency of the product. And they found various impurities in a lot of these products. You may have seen this with the drug ranitidine and valsartan have come up in the news quite a bit. And this kind of points out to the fact that maybe the culture of quality is failing at some level of an organization higher up in the drug supply chain. Be that it could be the API manufacturer, the manufacturer that actually makes the powder, the drug powder, the active pharmaceutical ingredient API, or it could be the manufacturer of the tablets themselves, somehow putting impurities in the process and not taking them out before they get to the final preparation and in bottles and sent out. So potency and purity are a really big thing lately with this coming out in the news. So how do we infuse training with quality? So remember back to the barriers. We're going to standardize, get everybody on the same page using the same techniques for how they're doing things on a daily basis. Use of technology. We're going to have more specialized training for our operators, and the use of technology to measure training effectiveness. So what's wrong with our current training programs? Currently, training can be very time consuming, uh, boring. I have down here lots of clicking through, death by PowerPoint, which is something that the military, when I was in the military, was famous for, just having PowerPoint after PowerPoint after PowerPoint, and you can get a little bit sick of the amount of PowerPoints that you have to go through. Too much info? Are we getting lost in some of the minutiae? Are we focusing on what we actually need to focus on? Is our training engaging? Is it at all engaging for the user of the training? And if it's not engaging, then you're going to lose the audience, and you're going to not have that standardization. People aren't going to be paying attention. And if all of the above are true, operators may rush through, have no takeaway from the presentation, and not operate using standard approaches. Again, that standardization comes back in. So let's talk about training standardization. TED Talk by Salman Khan of Khan Academy. And he talks all about passing scores versus 100% competency. And his point is that even in lower levels of education and in grade school, we go in and we take a test, and maybe we get a passing score of 80% or even lower than that, but it's still passing. But is that really indicative of knowing the material that we're supposed to know? And he makes a great example of building a house. And so you build the foundation of the house, and the contractor calls in the building inspector and says, "All right, let's check out the foundation of the house." And the building inspector gives the foundation a grade of A plus. So good job on the foundation. Well, then the contractor goes and builds the first level of the house, and maybe he uses you know laborers that are not totally up to par on knowing exactly how to do this. The building inspector comes back. He gives the first level a B. And then he goes on to build the second level. The second level, maybe he had to cut a couple corners here and there. Still not horrible workmanship, but the building inspector comes back and gives that a C. Still passing, but not quite up to 100%. And then the contractor goes and puts the roof on, and the whole thing comes down. Well, that's just a great example or story of what giving passing scores can potentially do in real life. That's just not how real life works. When we're building a house or building anything, we really need that structure to be at or near 100%. And cutting corners is not always the best thing in the world to do, because it could mess with the integrity of the house. Same thing with education, especially when we're talking about professional education, is in particular compounding. You want your operators to be at or near 100% competency. Specifically, let's talk about like aseptic technique. They really don't want your operator to be at an 80% level of aseptic technique. What are they missing there? What information do they not have that didn't get them to that 100%? Is it some key piece of information that's going to keep them from contaminating the final preparation? So this is a really important concept of passing versus 100%. And I think that example just really drives that whole idea home. So training standardization, one of the things that I'd like to kind of introduce is using video to demonstrate how to in order to standardize. So we can use this with cleaning, hand washing, putting on garb, aseptic technique, and environmental monitoring. Here I have a little, just a screenshot of someone mopping the floor, and the video demonstrates using a figure-8 motion for cleaning the floor, getting everybody on the same page to get all the cleaning procedures done correctly and done the same exact way is really important in getting your cleaning quality program under control. So I think that utilizing video is one of these things that we could infuse into our training programs that might also make it a little bit more engaging, but also standardize the procedures across the board for everyone. So this slide goes back to me and how I'm just like everybody else. I have to go and get continuing education, specifically in compounding, and I just had basically a lot of PowerPoint presentations or PowerPoint slide type presentations, and I have to be honest. I don't like PowerPoint presentations. I think it's okay for this type of setting, a live setting where you're going through slides, you're explaining it. But when there's no voiceover or anything like that to talk about what the slide is about, I think a lot of information gets lost in translation. So I started making videos as a result of my frustration for PowerPoint presentations and not just giving the information. So this is a screenshot of a video I made for cleaning and disinfection of the clean room. You can see there that I'm actually showing people when you're mopping a floor, you're using a figure 8 pattern, and there's a voiceover with this that's telling the person or the learner what they're supposed to be doing, why they're supposed to be doing it. So I really try to focus on the why and the how of my videos. And I found that the videos are a little bit more engaging. I have a lot of good feedback about the videos that they're much more useful in getting information from the video itself rather than a PowerPoint presentation that you're kind of just clicking through and having to read a lot of words on the screen. And again, there's voiceover to this, so I'm trying to engage as many senses as possible. Trying to speak to the learner and show the learner the proper way of doing things. Because let's be honest, this material is a little dry. It's not the most exciting of material, and you really want to spice it up as much as possible. So engaging as many of the senses as possible using voiceovers, pop-ups on the screen that say use a figure 8 or some kind of illustration to show what you're doing in the video goes a long way to showing people how to actually operate properly inside a clean room. And again, I like to focus on the how-to, so I'm really making how-to demo videos of all this stuff. This camera shot overhead is courtesy of Cone Health. This was taken from a presentation that Kevin Hansen did from Cone Health, and it's all about putting and utilizing technology, putting cameras overhead inside the primary engineering controls. And let's talk about the use of video to monitor current technique and as a learning tool. Now, I want to stress that this shouldn't be used as a punitive measure. If someone is not doing something correctly, let's not out of the gate use it as a measure for punishing that operator, but rather using it as a learning tool to figure out, all right, how can we do this process better, and how can we get everybody on the same page doing this all at the same time, not at the same time, doing it the same way, excuse me, and everyone using the correct techniques. Here you can see an overhead view of somebody inside a compounding primary engineering control, and looks like they're compounding some sort of mini bag. And are they using the correct technique? Are they blocking airflow? Are they utilizing all the proper technique, aseptic technique procedures for doing this correctly? And again, the main function here is so that we're not contaminating our compounds. So the use of technology in training. So here's another screenshot of another how-to video. This is a how-to video on how to wash your hands properly. And some of the areas that are often missed on the hands when you're doing hand hygiene. So I really try to focus in and hone in on the exact skills that you need to properly accomplish whatever the task is. In this case, washing your hands. So I'm pointing out to the learner that it's very important to pay special and close attention to fingertips, between your fingers, the back of your thumb, and don't miss these areas. These are areas that are often missed, and you want to pay special attention to them. And I really hope that by putting out videos like this and infusing it within educational modules, that it becomes the norm. Because I really think that let's face it, YouTube is one of those things that everybody uses as a DIY tool for learning how to do something, be it with your car, with your house. So why not infuse it into the same idea the how-to videos within professional education. I think that people are used to it already. It's something that they will cling to and find very very normal, because everyone's going to YouTube for everything else. So why not professional education too? How about the use of 3D environments for training? Again, this is another technology component. We can utilize a 3D environment. Actually, we can even capture our own environment so it looks extremely similar to, or exactly, what the operators are going to be operating in when they go in to do actual procedures. And here I have a 3D environment, and I've embedded videos within the 3D environment to show certain aspects of gowning procedures, or how you're going to go into the clean room, what you're going to do to bring things into the clean room. And utilizing 3D environments as a training tool, to show your operators exactly what they're going to be doing when they're operating inside the real thing. And again, this is another screenshot, how to properly use a biological safety cabinet. Again, this was all captured with a 3D camera, and not too difficult to do. Embedding all this stuff on the web and then putting a video together to show your operators how to function properly within this environment. So in training, we can also use gamification when we're going through our training programs, and that means turning it into something like a game, earning points and rewards as you progress through courses, and even making it competitive amongst your operators, having a leaderboard showing who's at the top of the leaderboard and who's second, third, and fourth, and show who's properly going in and doing the training programs correctly and finishing all of them, and then of course answering the questions correctly. Rewards as a driver for learning and quality. So you obviously you must use metrics to do this, figuring out who the top performers are on the learning modules, and maybe use some kind of reward, be that gift cards, monetary, or days off, or special privileges for your operators. The better they do, the more they're rewarded. I think this idea of using rewards as a driver is very effective, and will also boost the morale of your operators. Specialized training. Let's move on to that. Specialized training. So currently, our specialized training, specifically, again, we're talking about sterile compounding here. A lot of the content is slideshow type, computer-based, self-paced modules that you're clicking through. There's a lot of information on the slides. Maybe there's a voiceover telling you, walking you through the slides. Maybe not. The presentation maybe is a little bit boring and dry. Again, I talked about this, that, this isn't the most exciting of material, and, anything you can do to kind of spice it up and make it a little bit better goes a long way. And sometimes that leads to people just clicking through to the end, and then they get to the quiz and test, and maybe they get just a 70% or 80%, just enough to pass. But again, this goes back to you really don't want people just at 70 or 80% competency. You want them at or as close to 100% competency. Do they know how to properly function within their job role? And again, I kind of harped on slideshows a little bit, but there's something in the military, and I mentioned this before about death by PowerPoint, and there is slideshows and PowerPoint presentations for literally everything in the military. That's exactly how they do most of their training. And there's quite a bit of training you have to do in the military. It doesn't just stop at boot camp or officer training school. You're constantly learning new things in the military, new procedures and new policies that they put out, and everything's in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, and it's just literally you just get sick of PowerPoint presentations. It's truly a death by PowerPoint situation. 95, and there's a whole bunch more standards within the compounding compendium as well, that I would also recommend. Specialized skills training, like basic microbiology understanding, and understanding of how cleaning works, and aseptic technique, also are very specialized pieces of training that you have to go through in order to operate correctly. And again, meet those GMP standards of quality, of potency, purity, strength, quality, and I'm blanking on the others. But so compounding pharmacy definitely requires very specialized training. We have a lot of standards that we have to know, and I don't know if anyone's gone through and read USP 795, 797, 800. And not, it doesn't just stop there. There's a lot of other chapters besides those three in the compounding compendium, that are very good and very useful, have a lot of information for a bunch of different things within compounding. And again, this is all very specialized information that you need to know and be at or close to 100% competency with knowing the knowledge and the skills behind all these chapters. Compounding pharmacy definitely requires specialized training. It should be engaging and memorable. You want people to be able to look at something, perhaps a video, and maybe remember, oh yeah, that's something that I need to do inside the clean room. I need to use that figure 8 technique. It's something that they can actually picture in their head and utilize that for when they're operating inside the real environment. And operators then need to demonstrate that competency. So observational competencies are a really big thing within 797 for being compliant. You want to have your operators, you want to actually be able to look at your operators and see whether or not they're doing these things correctly. And the knowledge and skills need to be at or near 100% of the expectation. So again, going back to that example of building a house, if we're building our foundational skills on just 80% over and over and over again, are we really understanding all of that content? Are we really going to be able to operate at 100% at our job? I think this is really important, again, not to get lost in a lot of the minutia, but understand the actual job and what you need to do to operate correctly inside those environments. Again, we're working in really specialized environments where we need to keep our particulate levels down. We need to keep our viable particles down. Viable meaning microorganisms in the clean room, because again, the whole point, especially with sterile compounding, is to be able to not contaminate the compound. So again, training needs to be tracked and performed routinely. The biggest thing that I'd like you to take away is that within compounding, I know I've said this several times, but there are a lot of skills that you have to be at or near 100% to perform properly and function correctly within a clean room. And you can do this by looking at the training scores. The scores and the knowledge levels are recorded, and you should be able to pull a report to see across the organization and individuals what people are scoring on these post tests. So a quality management system is one of these ways that we can track training. A quality management system, in essence, is a system that allows you to track data. And that data is to feed back into your quality system to tell you whether or not all the different things that you're monitoring are up to spec, up to par, and you should be able to do the same thing with training. The training, you should be able to look at the scores of your users, compare them between users, and get a good idea in a pretty quick, brief snapshot how everyone is performing on these training modules. But you don't necessarily need a full quality management system to do this. You can track this using a spreadsheet if you really wanted to. But I highly recommend utilizing a quality management system. A good quality management system would be able to put out these reports to show you this. And what I see in a lot of the current quality management systems being used is nothing more than a spreadsheet. And if you don't know how to properly use a spreadsheet and get all of the data into a nice graph or something like that to show you very quickly how everyone is doing with their scores, then the data is only as useful as it's only as useful as you know how to use it. So the biggest thing here is that if you don't know where you currently are with the scores and training, then you don't necessarily have a compass to show you where you need to go. So utilizing this data and feeding back into the training itself, maybe there's some kind of fault in the training. Maybe there's something that everyone is just not understanding. A concept is not being explained well enough. You need to be able to look at the scores and see what areas may need further concentration and remediation on. And again, that could be a problem with either the training or the operators themselves, just kind of skipping through the training and not really understanding all the information that's being presented. So just to summarize, we talked about a culture of quality or a quality culture, the barriers to a quality culture, focusing on barriers with training. And we talked a lot about utilizing training as a mechanism to not only teach your operators, but to get them to the point where they're actually operating at hopefully 100% of the time at 100%. So yeah, with that, I'm going to conclude. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. And if you are not quite thinking of any questions right immediately, you can always contact me at seth@ycmce.com. So thank you so much for thank you so much for being with me today and going through this presentation.